Hey guys, welcome back to She Taught Systems channel. My name is Nicola Melinda. I'm a verified ClickUp consultant, and today's video I'm going to be sharing with you some of the best practices for using tasks inside of ClickUp. Now, if you have been using ClickUp for quite some time, you would have no doubt seen there have been some changes in the layout of the task cards and even just some of the features and the fundamental elements inside of the tasks in ClickUp. So we're going to run through what they are, but what I'm also going to do is touch on some of the task features that you may not be using, or maybe you are and you're just quite not sure of how they fit into the bigger picture inside of your workspace. We're going to tackle all of that. We're going to be looking at subtasks, how to manage your subtasks, how to understand the tasks themselves, how to set your statuses, what are task types. We'll look at relationships, and I'm also going to share with you my simple rules of delegation when it comes to sharing tasks and work with your team. So stick around for this video, and if you do enjoy what you're seeing, please do drop a like or share a comment, and I would love to know what your thoughts are as we dive in. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start with just understanding where your tasks live inside of ClickUp. So ClickUp has its own hierarchy, which is under what we call your workspace. So within that workspace, you then start to categorize your work within spaces, folders, and lists. Your tasks live in lists inside of ClickUp. So the tasks cannot live anywhere else inside. They cannot be freestanding tasks inside of spaces or folders. You need to assign your tasks to a specific list, and that can be where a lot of the confusion can come into place, because understanding the structure and the way that you're going to organize your business inside of ClickUp will play a part into how you organize where your tasks live inside of ClickUp. So as a rule of thumb, I tend to use spaces as your organization's departments or grouping into key functions within your business. As an example, if it's an agency, you may just have a delivery space, a growth space, and an operations space. Within each of those spaces, you'll then have various folders. The folders will serve a function within that particular area of the business. So in your delivery space, that may be where you take on your client accounts and you manage service delivery. So each client will have their own folder, and for various projects you will have a list for each project that you are working on with your client. So if you're working on a web design build or a brand strategy or a system setup, you'll have different lists for that project, and the tasks will be housed within the project list. So that's how you'll start to organize it. Now, you then start to go into another hierarchy inside of the tasks, in that you can add on subtasks. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into nested subtasks, because you can have subtasks within subtasks, but the subtask is always assigned to a parent task. So you'll have a main task assigned to a list within a list, and then you can have subtasks. Subtasks are great if you have, say, a bigger project, and within that project you need to break down the tasks into smaller components. So perhaps you have 2 or 3 team members working on one particular element of your project. Then you need to start delegating different tasks to those team members. Subtasks are where that will come into play, and that will be really beneficial for you being able to filter out the views in terms of needing to see work that is assigned to specific people, and setting separate due dates on each of the tasks as well. So I just wanted to give you that background on some of the way that the tasks sit inside of ClickUp, how they work. We're going to run through a bit of a screen share so you can see some other elements in real time on using tasks inside of ClickUp. So here we are inside of a project list inside of ClickUp. So when we talked through the hierarchy of ClickUp, as you can see, this is a real case study of exactly how that hierarchy can look and will look. So as you can see here, we have our spaces at the high level in our overall workspace. These are our different spaces that we have, and then inside of our spaces we have our folders, and then we have inside of our folders our lists where we are housing our project tasks. And so this is where we can view our tasks inside of ClickUp. In terms of creating tasks, you can create tasks anywhere inside of ClickUp. You can create from the home view, you can be at the inbox view. As long as you see add task, you can always add a new task. When you do click add a task, it will prompt you to say where that task needs to live. So if you are using any of these buttons, you'll just need to be aware of the location within your workspace of where your task needs to live. So if it doesn't need to live in this particular list, maybe it's in a different list, you can just select that list and then you can add in the task name, and then you can also add in your description. So this is how you can build out your task inside of ClickUp wherever you are in the workspace, and you can assign that to a member of your team, and you can also set your due dates. And if there is a priority on that task, then you can say what that priority actually is, whether it's a high priority or a low priority, but you can assign that priority inside of this task as you're creating it. Once you're done, literally click on create task, or you can click on the drop down arrow, which gives you some options to either create and open the task, or create and start another task, or duplicate the task that you've created. So when you go to create your task, just click create, and that task will sit down in the list that it needs to be. So in this particular list, you've got an example of tasks that are for a particular project. This is for a website build project. So in this example, what you'll be doing is listing out all of the tasks that are required for this particular project. And as we can see, we have assignees, we're using our start and due dates. We also have statuses for our tasks, which also can be updated on the left-hand side. So these are very high level statuses, just to do, doing, paused, complete. And our complete status will close the task down. So this will take that task from view. So at what point do you need to start considering subtasks in your projects? So in this example, we have parent tasks, which are what you're seeing as the main task. And then we have this one task that does have subtasks attached to it. Now to create subtasks, you literally just find the task and hit the plus section. And that will allow you to add subtasks into this project. So subtasks will come into play when you have a main task, a bigger task, but there are lots of subsequent tasks that need to be added to that main task. So you might look at that main task as a project within itself. So you'll break it down into smaller actionable steps that other team members could take on board so that they can do other work as well. The good thing about subtasks is they also have their own start dates and due dates. They also have their own status, and you can use the custom fields and implement custom fields to add further stages to the subtasks themselves. So in this example, we've got a task which is called create concepts, and the subtask is draft concepts. So I can look at this task and know it's a subtask because it's got this little connector tool here that tells me this is a subtask. And I can go back to the parent task, which is here at the top, which is called create concepts. So I can still navigate around my project and still go back to various tasks if I'm inside of the subtask. The parent task is going to tell me how many subtasks are attached to it, and I'll also be able to see what the custom fields are within this task as well. At the top, we can see where the task is housed. So this is the space, this is the folder, this is the list, and we have the option to move our tasks around. So if you want to switch it from one list to another, we can do that, and you can search in the search bar. Next, we also have the option to see what the activity is. So the activity view will tell you what comments have been made. They will tell you what automations have played out. If you're using emails in ClickUp, it will show all of that information inside of this area. Now you can filter your activity view. So if you click on this filter here, you can decide what activities you want to see and what you don't want to see. So if you don't want to see updates on watchers or time tracks, time estimates, you could take that off. So as an example, I've clicked off time estimate and it's removed my activity from that time estimate. I can remove status updates as well. So I can say I don't necessarily want to see a status change. Removing it from view, it doesn't mean that the paper trail, the digital paper trail, doesn't happen. It still is logged. It's just meaning that you no longer have that view inside of your activity field. So next up, we have our action items, and these are the checklists that we will find within the task. So if you have your parent task or your task, just as it is, and you have various process steps that need to be followed, these will look like your checklist items. So your checklist items, they're not necessarily going to be given a due date as such, but you can assign these to a team member, and it just means that your team can know that they have an item that they have to be aware of. So this is going to show as a checklist item for myself that I need to be aware of. So I can see that that is now assigned to me. So when it comes to creating statuses for your tasks, this is the next part of managing your tasks inside of ClickUp. Statuses are the best way to keep your tasks organized, and also for you to be able to track the stage that your tasks are in. So in a project, what I like to recommend is keeping your statuses very high level, making sure that you have, your to-do, tasks that need to be done, tasks that are in progress, so you can know what's actually been started. You could add in statuses, which is like to review, and maybe a status for a task that's on hold or has been paused. And then you obviously have your closed statuses. Now, the statuses on the project list can be found at this side, on the left-hand side, next to every single task. But if you do also want to update your statuses, you can go to your list settings and click on list statuses. So this will now pull up the statuses for this particular list. It's got the option as use custom statuses, but actually if we were to say inherit from a folder, if there's statuses within the main folder, we could pull those in, or we can select a template. So these are all of the templated statuses that are inside of ClickUp, and this is a new way that we're viewing the statuses. You can create new list statuses using this particular view. So you would just literally select new template and give that template a name. And then you can decide what that should be. So it could be to do, I might change this and just say in progress, in review, paused. So then we can change the color of our statuses. Just by selecting the color there. And then you can apply those changes. So you can save the template, save it as a new template, and it will show as saved. And now we can use this. So when you save your list statuses down, what will happen is we apply this change to our list. It's going to update our statuses. So now doing is now in progress, and we've also got some additional statuses in place that we can use. Now, when it comes to managing your tasks, if you have a lot of projects inside of your ClickUp, so you have multiple client projects across the board, using your high-level statuses will make it much easier for you to be able to view your tasks at a higher level. So if we're looking at the space level, we can then look and categorize our lists based on the status, right? So in this particular view, we can group all of our tasks based on the status. If I want to filter based on statuses, I can do that as well. I don't have too many statuses. The concept is that when you keep your statuses high level, it makes it much easier for you to group your statuses. It makes it easier for you to view them in different parts of your workspace. So if you're looking at everything view, or at the space view, or even on a dashboard, you're not having to filter through multiple types of statuses to get the information that you need. It's all very streamlined and very simple. So within ClickUp, you actually have what we call task types. And so you have the option to turn your main tasks into what we call milestones. Now, for the purpose of milestones, especially when you're managing big projects, you might find that you just have certain tasks that are key points within a project that need to stand out within your project plans, your Gantt chart views, and so forth. So using milestones are a really, really great way for you to just, and for the team to identify what are the key tasks that we are working towards. So let's just turn one of our tasks into a milestone so you can see how that works. So I can select the task here on the left-hand side, and it will pull up our hidden menu and just go to set task type, and we can change it to a milestone. Now, what you'll notice is that instead of it looking like a little circle, now it kind of looks like a diamond, but it still has the same status applied to it. It's just that it's now looking like a diamond shape on the project plan. So all of the tasks that look this way, they are our milestones within the project. Those are our project milestones. So if we had another task which was called launch, for example, we could create that task, and then what we can do is also open up the task and use that as a milestone. So I'm inside of our new task, which is called launch, and I'm just going to convert this to a milestone. So I'm going to change this to a milestone. So you can do it from this view as well. So that's just one benefit about the different task types. They have evolved, as I said, inside of ClickUp. So now there is a view in our ClickUp settings where you can actually create your own specific task types. So this is found in your settings, but you can also go up to this little menu and click on task types here, and it will pull up a new view where you can create your own task type. So you can choose what type of an icon it should have or it should be. So let's just say, for example, this is a document, so maybe an SOP type of task. And we'll create it. So this is a SOP type of task. Then we could go back to our workspace. Put launch SOP, and let's just move that to the right section. Let's put that in our deployment section, and we're going to just update this task type. So you can see that this task type has changed, and now it's just a SOP type of task. So you might actually use that as an example to just house, this is how we do the launch process. So this is a really quick example, you guys, but we can dive into task types in another video as well. Just let me know in the comments if you would like to see more of that. So the next section we're going to look at is relationships. And so this is basically a way for you to set dependencies within your projects. So you may be aware that ClickUp allows you to create dependencies so that you can have tasks that are being held and tasks that are waiting on, so you can manage the workflow within your project. So you can either open up a task card like I've done here and just select on the three dots and just go to relationships, and then you've got your dependencies. That's one way to find your dependencies, or you can do it from the project list view here instead, and you can set your dependencies. So you can select a couple of tasks, and if you go to dependencies, it kind of looks like a little staircase icon. Click on that, and then you have all of your dependencies. Now here we can actually see all of the different types of relationships that you can have, because you can also have tasks that are linked to other tasks. So they're not dependent on each other, but they are still connected to each other. Waiting on is tasks that are waiting on other tasks to be completed. So these tasks must be completed before the next task can take place. And then you have tasks that are blocking, so tasks that will stop work happening, and work shouldn't continue past that point until they are completed. So as an example, we are looking at a website build. So we know that we cannot launch until the build itself is done. So if we rename this to say site build, let's just rename that task. We can't start the site build until we have all of our assets and deliverables, right? So I might just mark this down as a dependency and say that this task is actually blocking the site build, and I can search for it, but it's also there at the top. So I can just say that this task is blocking it. The site build is now waiting. You can see that it's waiting on the assets and deliverables before it can start. So it's setting up a process or a workflow within this project. So these tasks below can't happen until the other task happens. The same for the launch. The launch cannot take place unless the site is actually built. So again, the launch is actually waiting on the site build to take place, right? So the site build is now in a unique spot. It's in the middle. It is actually it's waiting on a task. It's waiting on assets and deliverables, but it's also holding up the launch. So if this site build doesn't happen, we cannot launch this website setup. So you can see how the relationships between the tasks start to get linked together. So if I open up the site build task, you'll be able to see the dependencies that are attached to this task. So you can see the relationships that are attached. You can see that it's blocking one task, but it's also waiting on another. I can click to see what is it waiting on, and it's going to tell me all of the tasks that it's waiting on, the due date, the priority, and I can also add in new dependencies. And the same for any tasks that are being blocked as well. I can see that we cannot launch until this is actually completed. So that's just one type of relationship that we have in place. Okay, so this is my favorite part of the video. I cannot wait to share with you, but these are my rules of delegation. So if you have been struggling to make sure your team tasks are on track, and for yourself to also have oversight on where everyone's work is and the progress of work, you do need to start by looking at your tasks and ensuring that you have these elements in place before we start to dive into optimizing views and creating dashboards and all of the things. These will help you significantly, even in the project list inside of ClickUp, just to ensure that you have a handle on where the work is and how things are being managed in your workspace. So the first rule of thumb is that every task inside of your workspace needs to have an assignee to it. Now I'm talking about actionable tasks. I'm not talking about tasks that are just in place in, brain dump lists or anything like that. We are talking about projects where there is active work and the team is working on these active tasks. They need to be assigned to someone. I am not a fan of multiple assignees to one task. If you need to assign more than one person to a task, I am a fan of splitting out the responsibilities. So having a parent task and then having the separate subtasks and assigning to each individual. That way, everybody knows what they need to be focused on, working on, and they can have their own due dates and notes in the description and so forth. So make sure your tasks have an assignee. If you do have multiple team members that are involved in a task, but it's not their task that they're owning, then you can add them as watchers. And so watchers will still have an idea of updates on the tasks and be able to see what is happening on these tasks, but they won't necessarily have them coming up in their to-do list. The next is applying due dates, and if you can, ideally apply start dates as well. This will also make it much easier for you to know if work is overdue, if work is being held up for a particular reason inside of your projects. So apply due dates, apply start dates. Start dates are really beneficial if you know that work is going to take a longer period of time. So the due date is not necessarily the day that the work will be done. And if your team are only looking at due dates but they don't know how much time they have to deliver on that piece of work, it might start to mean that their work starts to stack up, because they might only do that work on the due date, unless they're super efficient and they're starting it ahead of time. So start dates gives your team a time frame of when they can start and finish the work and when it's due. You might also factor in a bit of buffer time as well if you need to do some quality checking. So if you have a project that is due, say, in 10 days time, perhaps you'll give your team member 5 days. That gives you another 5 days to manage the work, quality checking and sending it over to your clients for review in case your team needs to make any tweaks or updates to the work that they're doing. Bigger tasks need to be broken down into smaller tasks. So I have touched on this a little bit already, but I'm just putting this as its own bullet point as well. In terms of delegating, it can get very confusing very quickly if your team are assigned to tasks that are just, the workload looks so big, or there are multiple people working on one particular task. So make sure that you are really breaking down your bigger tasks, the bigger projects, into smaller subtasks to make it easier for your team to know exactly what they need to focus on. It's going to help them to reduce time, and so they're not getting caught up with work that has nothing to do with them really, but it just means that they have more time to focus on what they actually need to be doing and not doing other work that is for another team member. Use the description. Oh my goodness, if you can use your task description, please do. The descriptions in the task can be formatted with rich text formatting, and there are also some amazing functionalities for banners, highlighting, using headers. You can drop in links, share from other external apps. You can even link to other tasks or other documents inside of ClickUp. There is so much functionality in the description. If you are not using this, especially when you are delegating work and projects to your team, highly recommend start putting the description to work right now. And if you have recurring tasks that are templates, use the description to build out and share instructions on how to set up this task template, how to set up this project. And this is going to be so much easier for your team when they are busy in work and they just need quick steps on exactly what to do, what to focus on, and how to get the work done. If you have process steps that need to be followed, then use the checklist items. So another rule of thumb is to use the checklist, and the checklists are perfect for just listing out certain process steps or high level steps that need to be adhered to ensure that this particular task is completed. So the checklists are a little bit different to subtasks in that you're not going to be able to assign a due date, but you can assign a person to a checklist. So they're just a little bit different. It's almost like the reminders. So for example, if you are doing marketing tasks and you're preparing a newsletter for your clients, you might need to just have some process steps in place. So proofread, add in call to action links, make sure the SEO tags are added in place, whatever those things may look like. As an example, the checklist items will just ensure the quality of that task is always at the same level and standard. And finally is to use high level statuses within your list, your project list, and for your tasks as well. So the statuses that you will see on your list are what will help you to categorize where your tasks are in terms of in progress. So if you have tasks that are ready to start or that need to be done, you might use statuses like to do, in progress, in review, maybe on hold or stuck. And then obviously when a task is completed, you can mark that down as complete. So you will just use high level statuses, and then if you need to add deeper context to the task, you can use your custom fields. So when you do have high level statuses at a higher level in terms of viewing your tasks at the everything view or at a space level view or a folder view, and even on dashboards, it will be a lot easier for you to filter based on the statuses in those locations because you have a very simplified status for your tasks. There you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it valuable. Please do let me know what questions you have, and also what are some of the tips that you're going to implement in your own ClickUp workspace. I want to know. If you do need help with your own ClickUp, I am a verified consultant and I do provide done for you ClickUp setups and consulting for agencies and consulting teams. My details are in the description for you to book a call and we can talk more about your own business needs. But until next time, thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next video. Take care.